is difficult, but that's the task we've got today. So let's look at one or two of the top contenders in these Winternationals. This man won the World Championship in fine style back in the summer at Ipswich. Car number 88, Peter Grimer, comes from Willingborough, does most of his racing in the Midlands, so by comparison with some of the other drivers, not so experienced. One man who really knows his way around this track is car number 19. There he is, Mick Duffy Collard, world champion at least once, 1980, won the Winternationals here in 1983, currently 4th in the national points chart. Goes well at Wimbledon, must be in with a good chance today. Now, the man who's top of the points this season, who scored more points than any other driver so far this season, is 306 George Polly. He's been racing now for over 20 years, and really, on present form this season, must be well in with a very, very good chance indeed to do well in this one today. Of course, the event is lining up now in graded order. That means the top point scorer is down at the very back, and that's where George Polly is. He's got all the rest of those cars to pass. The world champion lines up alongside him as the flag goes down, and we're on our way now. There's 50 laps to come of this Wimbledon circuit. Takes just a few laps to settle down, and most of the leading drivers in these big events are usually happy to sit down at the back and just feel their way. They just want some of the other drivers in front to sort themselves out, find the slippery patches, and believe me, there are a few slippery patches out there. You can see there's a massive iron, and the drivers like Peter Grimer are just happy to sit there for a couple of laps, begin to feel their way, see where there may be some gaps coming, and of course the track is difficult, and this is a chance for them to try them out. Let's get a word on that now from Barry Lee.
Yes, the track is very, very slippery here today, Nigel, but I think visibility isn't going to be a problem, but I think engine overheat is going to be a problem when the cars go around the outside of the track, which you can see George is just about to move to the outside. Now, that's when the radiators are going to get filled with mud and sawdust and present a problem later on in the race.
Well, now, let's look at the front of the grid. 3 laps have gone. 3:48 is currently leader. That's John Moore. 3:09, Simon Johnson is lying in second place, and 3:11, Steve Fuller is third. 3:48 the leader, then 3:09, then 3:11. So that's the front of the field. This is down at the back. The world champion still well down there, 88. That's the lead car, though. 3:48, John Moore. The colour on the roof denotes he's a yellow grade driver. That's a second grade driver. The novice drivers have a white roof. The second grade drivers are yellow. Building up a little bit of a lead. The shale from the speedway track, of course, is still on there, but that'll slowly get flattened and begin to bend down. And they'll begin to find a good way round. So 3:48 is the leader. 2:10 has now moved. That's Andy Grout has moved up into second place. 3:11 is third. Steve Fuller. 6 laps gone. Still a long, long way to go. And he's finding one or two little sticky patches there. What's the best way to deal with these patches, Barry?
Try actually to miss the patches. It's very, very hard earlier on in the race to be able to see a dry line. It's slowly forming now, but it's quite interesting to see that George Polly went for half slick tyres and half wet tyres, and Duffy Collard, number 19 car, actually, when there's George now in the camera there, number 19 car went for all wet tyres. Now, in fact, in the pitch, George was saying he was going to make the challenge halfway through the race, and in fact, he's in front of Duffy, so George has actually made the right choice. There's George, and there's Duffy, just 2 cars behind. Just coming into camera shot now is Duffy Collard.
And there, of course, is the world champion, Peter Grimer, in the 88 car. And he seems to maybe have got a little bit of trouble there. I don't quite know whether it's just that he's having trouble finding some grip. No, maybe not. He's just content. It's a long race, and he's content, in fact, to take it easy. There was a lot of frantic tyre changing just before the race started. Drivers really seemed unable to make up their minds as to exactly which tyres were the best ones to go on. 9 laps gone. Still this one, 3:48, John Moore in the lead. 3:11, Steve Fuller is in second place. 2:10, Andy Grout is third. Then we go back to 4:57, Alan Dent. But still, what we consider to be the leading contenders are some way back. The light-coloured material you can see on the track on the inside is sawdust, which has been sprinkled to try and soak up some of the moisture and to try and give them a little bit more grip. And there's trouble for Bill Bridges, 258. What might have happened?
On that particular card, Bill actually lost it coming into the corner. Nobody, in fact, touched him. He was out of camera shot. I was watching it. That's one of the ex-George Polly cars. He actually made a mistake himself and spun out himself.
Well, here we see the leader. Now, there's an interesting thing there. We've got 348. In fact, John Marr, our leader, has just lapped the world champion Peter Grimer, and it really seems that Peter Grimer has got problems. Something is not right there, Barry.
No, if you watch Peter Grimer's car now, if you watch the front wheels, when he goes into the corner, the steering is not responding. See there, it's understeering. He then oversteers very badly, loses a lot of traction coming out of the corner, and two more cars have just gone past the world champion. So he has now been lapped by the first three cars.
Well, that's bad news indeed for Peter Grimer. Obviously keen to add a little more success to his World Championship title in the summer here at Wimbledon. He is used, of course, mainly to tarmac raceways. Hensford Raceway in the Midlands, dished tarmac bowl, and believe me, racing on this surface today is a very different kettle of fish. 14 laps have now gone in this 50-lapper. It's still the 348 car of John Moore, the yellow-grey driver. 311 Steve Fuller is second. 457 from Abbots Langley and Hertfordshire. Alan Dent is in third place at the moment. Behind him we go back to 354 Brian Warren. Then we've got 210 Andy Grout. Then 558 is Ray Brammer. He's there then. 306 George Polly is currently in 8th place. Mick Collard 19 is in 10th. And there indeed is George Polly trying desperately to get past some of those slower cars. Oh, a little bit of a nudge there.
Yes, you saw the 306 car go to the outside. The car in front of him, I couldn't quite catch the number of the car, actually pulled out. It wasn't George's fault, because the car that he was overtaking, I've seen people push trolleys around supermarkets quicker than that guy was going. So, in fact, George Polly was going round the outside and just pulled the back of the other car. He's now trying to go under, as he goes round the outside now, George will be braking very heavily. He will now flick to the inside of the circuit to try and go under the 428 car. He knows he's trying to get round. No, he's blocked by Peter Grimer, which he also is coming up to lap as well. I think Peter Grimer's car is in some sort of a problem. He's gone very, very wide there, as you see.
And the man, in fact, right in front of George Polly there, 428, is Pete Winston, former European hot rod champion, currently the holder of the Best in Britain title. And he knows his way around, and he won't want to let George Polly get in front of him. There's no doubt about that.
He is also like a mobile chicane. Pete Winston is one of the hardest drivers I know from experience of trying to get by. He's like a mobile chicane, actually.
Well, there we are. We can see the problem in George that George Polly has indeed got. 18 gone now. Still 348 is the lead car as George Polly tries to go by on the outside. There's Mick Collard, the number 19 car. He's still way back in about 9th or 10th place. And they are really finding the going rather difficult today. Collard in rather unfamiliar colours for him, but it's the yellow top 348 who's now slipped to second as 311 Steve Fuller from Egham indeed takes it up. Still a long way to go. We haven't got halfway yet. And it is 311 who is the leader. 311 Steve Fuller. 457 Alan Dent has now gone up into second place. 348 has gone down to third, then comes 306 George Polly, then we've got 495, Andy Dance is tucked in behind him, then we go to car number 354, 558, and then 19 Mick Collard is now up into 8th place. So those are the placings as we come towards the halfway stage. 21 laps gone. In fact, I think that was the 348 car just spun out we saw as we went out of the picture. So there's the leading group.
It's interesting to see there, Nigel, that George Polly has now moved up, right up behind. He's just overtaken Dave Coyne, and he is up now, I believe, in third position behind Alan Dent, the 457 car.
There's Mick Collard. He's got a bit of problem trying to get past the 525 car of Roger Homer. Mick Collard really being left a little behind at the moment. He's back in 8th, whereas George Polly is now there in 3rd place. There's the leading group. You can see them there. 457 is 2nd, and just in front of him is the 311 car of Steve Fuller. And I think we'll see now these 2 top drivers try and get past that 311 yellow top.
I'm sorry to have to come in. I think George Polly, I saw a little tiny puff of white smoke coming out of the bonnet of George Polly. This might be what I said at the beginning. I believe that his engine could slightly be overheating now with the dirt coming off of the racetrack.
Well, we'll have to wait and see what happens there. George keeping going for the moment, and the 2 star men now piling the pressure on that poor yellow top. I say poor yellow top. The second-grade driver obviously hasn't scored that many points, hasn't got the experience of these other drivers. And they're now going to put the pressure on and use all their experience to try and get him out of the way. And I don't think he's going to last a lot longer. You'll see Alan Dent go for a gap there, or George maybe go down the outside. So round the pit turn they come. 306 and 457 side by side. George Polly on the outside, Alan Dent on the inner. And just ahead of them, the yellow top 311 car. Just over halfway now. 26 laps have gone. And this is the struggle for the lead. The yellow top trying to put one back marker between him and the 2 stars.
Now, George is most probably having a bit of a problem here seeing, actually, because he was going off to the inside and overtaking a slower car which was on the outside, which is kicking up a lot of dirt. He's now gone underneath Alan Dent, as you can see now. He's gone past Alan Dent. He's got the dry line. He should now be challenging for the lead position going into the pit turn.
Indeed, second place, 306 George Polly, the leader 311 Steve Fuller, and Alan Dent relegated to 3rd as they come down the home straight now, and the yellow top really is holding on very well indeed. He's held them off for quite a few laps now. 311 has held the lead since the 19th lap. That's nearly 10 laps, and in fact Mick Collard has had enough. He wasn't really in contention. When we last looked at the lap sheets, he was in fact down in 8th place and wasn't making a lot of impression on the leaders. And I wonder what the problem is there. He's retired, but the other man with problems, the world champion, Peter Grimer, is still going. Barry, really, what do you think could be the main problem with Peter? Is it still that steering?
The main problem is just steering. He's understeering very badly. That means to say when he turns his wheel hard right to go into a corner, nothing happens.
And meanwhile, just as we were looking at that, George Polly has gone through on the inside of 311 to take it up. George Polly is now the leader. 306 has gone ahead. He did exactly as Barry predicted. He got himself on the inside. The yellow top drifted wide. 311 went out, and that was it. George was through in 306. And in fact, Alan Dent has followed through now in 2nd place as well. So it's 306, the leader. George Polly, 457. Alan Dent is 2nd. 311. Steve Fuller is in 3rd place. He's going to be under pressure in a minute from 495. Andy Dance. 354 is moving up in there as well, Brian Warren. 558, Ray Brammer is coming up behind him. And then we go back to 523, Kenny Cook. So with 32 laps gone of this Facing Winternational event, it's still George Polly, the on-form man this season, who is clearly and comfortably at the moment in the lead. And he's now got 1, 2, 3 back markers between him and 2nd place man Alan Dent in 457. There's George, the bottom right of the picture. Then he's got the 3 back markers, and then the darker coloured car there is 457 Alan Dent. And then there's 311, the yellow top in 3rd place. And coming right up alongside him now is 495 Alan Dance. And tucked right in behind then is 523 Kenny Cook. So George Polly well in command in 306. So with George Polly comfortably in the lead, what would be your tactics at this stage of the race, Barry? 35 laps gone, you've got yourself a lead of about 30 yards. Where do you go from here?
You mustn't let up. You've got to keep going, because as soon as you let up and start to slow down to give either your car or yourself a bit of a breather, that's when mistakes happen. But let's be honest, George, he's only been doing hot rodding for 20 years. If he keeps at it, someday he will become good.
There's no doubt about that. 306, there he is. George Polly. Although he's done so well over all those years, in fact, he's only won the World Championship once. That was way back in 1976. That was 8 years ago, of course. But he's won just about everything going in the sport over that long period of time that he's been racing, and he looks at the moment anyway to be adding that Winternational trophy to the massive collection already on his sideboard.
George's car is actually putting out a little bit of steam. I saw it about 10 laps previous to this. I think it's getting very hot. We can see the 306 car now going underneath the 308 car. It's in your screen. If you look at the near side front near side front wheel where the radiator overflow is, there's a little puff of steam every time it shuts off to go into the corner. I hope there's not going to be a problem for a fine drive.
Well, he's got a bit of lead, so if necessary he could ease up a fraction. In fact, he's now got the entire length of a straight. 306 has got the entire length of the straight. 457, Alan Dent is still in second place. There's then two back markers, and we go to 495, Andy Dance. 311, the yellow top, who led for quite a time, is then next. Then we've got to go right back through the field to 354, Brian Warren. 523, Kenny Cook. 558, Ray Brammer. 414, Neil Facey comes next. But they're all a long, long way behind, and they've got to struggle to catch this man. That's a back marker, the 308 Mark Tipping car. In fact, Mark Tipping won the last final here at the end of the 1984 season, just a few weeks ago, in a terrific scrap with Paul Condy. So he's well on form to win at Wimbledon, but at the moment he's a long, long way back. So 306 the leader, 457 Alan Dent still there in second place. He's a driver who's again been racing for many, many years, never won any of the major events, always has a smart car, always goes well, but just somehow doesn't manage to get up into the top placings in the major events. But he's got a chance of getting second place today. Andy Dance, 495, Reading driver, always goes well, very competitive, very keen, difficult man to get out of the way, and he's in there in third place. Whether he's going to find enough grip to, in fact, get up on turns, I don't know. The gap, in fact, is now beginning to close up between 306 George Polly and 457 Alan Dent. And Alan Dent has got 495 Andy Dance. That's the inside of those cars there as they go to that bend. There's 495 in third place, and the second place man is just in front of him.
Andrew Dance had a real big problem going past the back marker of Bob Loveland there. It's very unfortunate that these drivers, when they're a lap down, they don't take any notice of the flag signals and pull out of the way. It's a great shame, but he's now in front of the Bob Loveland car and challenging for second place on the 457 car.
So there we are. There's the second and third. There's 5 more laps to go. That's the scrap for the second place. 495 Andy Dance and 457 Alan Dent. And George Polly is now about 30 yards ahead. So that's the second and third, and the gap they have to make up. George Polly there is just down at the head of that little group, about 30 yards as you can see. There he is, leading that back marker. That's the margin that he's got, and there's 4 more laps to go this time. And this is an introduced scrap and a nudge there indeed. A push, a non-contact formula. Not supposed to nudge, but under these conditions it's probably a little difficult to avoid it. So 306 then, George Polly still there, still holding on. The fight is really for that second place, and it is quite a scrap between the man leading this little bunch there. Once again, a little nudge from Andy Dance. I said he was competitive, sometimes maybe a little too competitive. Back end drifts out, of course, while it's going sideways, it's not going forward and it's losing ground. Now, is he going to get that second place? And time is running out.
He's been a little bit unnerved by the Vauxhall, the car that he lapped actually there, Nigel. That's why he's a bit erratic there, but he's now pulled clear of it, and he's challenging, he's going underneath him now.
Still trying to get through, there's still a couple of laps to go. George Polly is still clear in 306, and it's these two who do battle for second and third. Andy Dance knows the time is running out. Here's a chance for him on the inside if he can hold that grip there. But once again, the back end slides out, and Alan Dent's just got the legs on him as they come out of there. He's trying once again now as they go into this turn, and the drift for both of them checks them back, but still Andy Dance just hasn't got quite enough. The checkered flag is at the ready now as George Polly comes off the turn. Here he is, he's going to take it. 25, 30 clear yards, 306, George Polly is the winner, and that battle for second place is resolved by Alan Dent hanging on, and Andy Dance not quite managing to get through. So, quite a scrap for the second place, a relatively easy win for George Polly. There's George, he can relax now. The fears that the motor might not last haven't come to pass, and it's his sideboard that is going to carry the Winternational trophy this year. 3:06, George Polly is the Winternational champion.